Hello and welcome inside the scores table. Brian Haenchen, Danny Riego, DeeAnn Ramey here with you. It's sectional draw night. The draw is done. It took 2 hours. The show will not take 2 hours. Um, that's all I got. That's the intro. How are you guys doing?
Okay, doing well.
Great.
So, DeeAnn, as a coach, what is sectional draw night like? I mean, because obviously you have the watch party, and then is it immediately into game planning and scheduling, or do you have to help with logistics? What does this look like from the coach's side?
Well, I think I think it is a good bonding experience. Obviously, it was different this year, but with the snow and the weather. But we always got together and did something as a team and watched the draw together, which had a meal together. So that determined it. And then after the kids left, then us coaches would sit down and talk and go through the game plan and what practice was going to look like. Heading into, like this week, it would be really interesting because you don't know what games are going to be postponed, what games are going to be rescheduled. If they're going to be rescheduled, who's going to be playing, and then how you prepare that heading into sectionals. So there's a lot of things to consider.
You mentioned the postponements, and that is going to be a fascinating wrinkle. We had Mike Armstrong, former Ham reading coach Todd Franklin, on the show earlier this morning, and that's something that he brought up is that there's going to be teams with some long layoffs here going into next week. I'm already seeing it. We talked before we came on air. Lawrence Central, a team in a section that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Their game against South Bend, Washington on Monday is already postponed, and they did draw the bye, so there's a chance that Lawrence Central for the second year in a row could go 2 full weeks between games. So some interesting wrinkles there. But for now, we're going to give kind of just an overview on the sectional draw, give our thoughts on some brackets, kind of like we did last year. And then as the week gets going, Danny and I, between my stuff online and then the show, we'll have some more granular and deeper dive takes. Danny, let's start at Class A, 2A, touch on some of those small classes initially, and then we'll move our way up to the big ones. The one that I'd want to start with is that Heritage Christian draw with Triton Central, Eastern Hancock, and Heritage Christian, where you have it is set up nicely, where you have Heritage Christian, who I think is the favorite in that sectional, on one half of the bracket. And then on the other, you have Triton Central and Eastern Hancock set up for a potential Friday meeting.
Yeah, well, when we were talking kind of, I don't know, backstage, I guess we'll call it, before we came on, we were talking about how the computers took Eastern Hancock and they gave them a single-digit chance. They gave them only a 9% chance to win this, which I think is very interesting. That has been a shift in the last couple of seasons where Eastern Hancock has come out of this sectional. I think there's a lot of conversation as to, then it was the 2-game regional. There's a lot of conversation. I know Eastern Hancock was around the center of that, but interestingly, when this one is, you probably like Heritage Christian because of their depth of guards, right? I mean, they just have multiple kids, whether it's Riley
Johnson.
Riley Johnson, Kiana Mellinson, of course, right? And so you have kind of this whole backcourt versus the Triton Central outfit with Felling and the Eastern Hancock outfit with Cook. Can those two kids, Felling and Cook, put together kind of a dream week to get them by? But yeah, Heritage Christian just having multiple options in the backcourt, I think, makes this an interesting sectional.
Triton Central, by the way, might be the most dangerous. I mean, they're playing some good basketball. They picked off a New Pal team that's come close to beating some really good teams here of late. Mary Rose Felling just became the school's all-time leading scorer. I've seen that kid in the postseason before and can attest. She's one of those who unlocks another level to her game this time of year, so that's going to be really fun and interesting to see. A little bit further south, Dan, you have the South Knox sectional one with North Knox. That's one of those where you sit on bated breath. And DeeAnn, I'm sure that you've had this with some of your North Central teams where you're just expecting the worst, where you get the two best teams paired up together on opening night in the opening game. But we got we split the difference there. We get a sectional semifinal between North Knox and South Knox. And I mean, get your tickets now because they might already be sold out.
Yeah, I think, that's the downfall of a blind draw, right? Is that, you got your two best teams in the sectionals going against each other early and not it being the final game. But, it is what it is. And, I know that it's hard, as a coach sometimes, you prepare for that tough team and then you're able to get the win and be successful. And then you've got to manage that letdown by your players thinking, not thinking about the next team, thinking that we've got them beat already. And then typically there's an upset. I know one year we upset number 1 Warsaw or Warren Central at the time. And then turned around and got beat by LN. So, that's a hard thing to play as well.
Yeah, so South Knox and North Knox, you guys mentioned how they were the definitive favorites within the sectional. I would go as far as to say that the South Knox North Knox winner on Friday night is the definitive favorite to advance out of the 2A South all the way to downtown. Like that's how much pressure is on this game. Rakestraw actually nailed it on the broadcast. If you guys had the audio for it, he actually said this exact scenario happened 2 years ago, where the trap that Coach Ramey was talking about was set up, and it was Linton on the other side that benefited from it. So I think that is an interesting thing. And I'm going to argue not the other side. I don't think it's the worst thing that this game is on Friday night. And I'll tell you why, is because you get 4 fan bases. Like the environment on a Friday night sectional is truly better than the Saturday night sectional because of the 4 fan bases. Even with who plays first or second, the winner of the first game always stays for at least a half of the second game to kind of see. It kind of creates this huge environment. Admittedly, when the draw show was happening, I actually put into Google Maps how far it was to Eastern Green High School, because North Knox and South Knox, playing at Eastern Green with 4 fan bases there, with the favorites in 2A South really on the line, not just a sectional title, to me seems like all the makings. We'll get into the matchup on Friday night. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but that is a styles makes fights kind of matchup too. Some of the things just to kind of tease you some of the content that we'll have during the week. Like North Knox shot 120 something threes. I don't have the exact numbers. South Knox shot 450. Like they want to attack you from the 3-point line. North Knox wants to attack you in the paint. It's very different, contrasting styles, not only just a county rivalry and the second or third time they're meeting this year. And over the years, obviously it's legendary, but yeah, that one has all the makings.
That's going to be phenomenal game. Let's move up to 3A and talk about what I think is the most loaded sectional in the state, honestly, in terms of just depth of talent. That's sectional 24 in Yorktown, where you have Hamilton Heights and Connorsville, Jay County, Newcastle, Delta, and Yorktown. Delta defending regional champion. Hamilton Heights, super young. We talked about them. Connorsville comes in as of now having won 10 of 11. Danny, just your initial thoughts on this group and how the bracket lines up.
Well, I think both Connorsville and Hamilton Heights caught a break in being on the opposite side of both Delta and Jay County. And the reason why I say that is because those two teams played to a 50-47 regular season score. I was actually in attendance for that game, and it could have gone either way. Some of the personnel through injury has changed, certainly for Heights. We talked about that earlier in the week, so that's going to change things. But Connorsville now sits there probably very confident in, hey, we're going to play this freshman-laden team who we played within a possession. Their personnel is very different. And then instead of, I don't want to say upsetting Hamilton Heights, but then they have an opportunity to say, well, we don't have to go through Jay County and Delta. Mm-hmm. And I think Hamilton Heights is in the exact same boat. Hey, we've got these freshmen. If we can get by Connorsville, we've already beat them, everybody. Then we have to put it together for one night on the other side of this bracket to try to get ourselves a sectional title in our first year as varsity basketball players. I think that dynamic of Delta and Jay County, who might be the two stronger teams in the bracket, are on the other side from both Connorsville and Hamilton Heights.
That's going to be that semifinal, by the way, if it comes to fruition. Delta versus Jay County is going to be phenomenal. Like Jillian Barnes and Jillian Barn, Addison Barnes going against the Schweiderman sisters. I mean, that's going to be phenomenal entertainment. DeeAnn, is there something to, speaking of Hamilton Heights, where they have 9 freshmen, is there something to that idea of kids are too young, almost too ignorant to understand the stakes, and that allows them to play a little freer, a little bit easier? I know that you've seen it probably from both sides.
Yeah. Sometimes you're okay with being young and being the underdog and, not really realizing the gravity of this situation. But they also know they haven't experienced the loss in a tournament yet either, and their last game. So they don't know that experience. Therefore, some of them aren't fearful. They don't have that experience. So it's just a real interesting dynamic.
Mhm. Another one with that dynamic here is going to be Brebeuf. Another team with that dynamic is Guerin Catholic, another really young team. They open it up against Brebeuf. I have it in my story. There was a stretch where Brebeuf would go from playing Chittard in the regular season finale to opening up the first night of sectionals against Bishop Chittard. And that was for 3 years in a row. They got a year off last year, Brebeuf did, with Lebanon, and naturally they were shorthanded due to injuries. This year they play an overtime game against Guerin Catholic in the penultimate game of the regular season, I believe. Now they turn around and play again opening night on sectionals. That's going to be a great game. Guerin Catholic certainly fits into that, what we were just talking about, a team that's too young to know any better. Daniel Cardinal, when I talked to her after the game, kind of mentioned that and just how important it was Friday night to get the feel for that pressure of an overtime game inside a sold-out arena there at Brebeuf. So really interesting game there, and it feels like the winner is going to be the favorite, but can never really count out a team like a Tri-West or even a Danville, which has run that sectional here for the past few years. So just wanted to shout out that matchup because that's going to be a fun one, and one that I have circled certainly on my schedule.
And that one also tests. Go ahead, DeeAnn.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
That one also tests the timelines of coaches. So you mentioned how they just played, right? And we were just kind of talking about how is the weather going to impact the week before sectionals. Now that's your first game. So coupled with the 1.5 weeks of preparation that you have, now it's the first game out. So that all of the practices and everything and all the concepts that you're talking about now will be singularly focused on an individual opponent. I think that's a different dynamic, and it's outside of what normal tournament play would be. And so I think I don't want to favor a coach, but I do favor maybe a coach's adjustment, maybe something that was if either of these coaches can identify something that happened in the first game that they can exploit, even if they started to do it late in like the fourth quarter, even that's something that could carry over into the game.
Yeah, and I was just going to say something similar in the fact that, the strength of schedule that some of these teams have had. I think some of them are better prepared against tougher competition heading into sectionals. So, that will prepare them as well.
Let's pause on that, DeeAnn. The strength of schedule. How as a coach do you balance making sure that you test your team with a bunch of good team and competition versus wearing them out, running them into the ground because you are playing almost too many good teams, too much of a good thing, so to speak? How did you try to find that balance?
Well, I didn't find a balance, to be honest. I wanted to play the best. I think in all my teams, we played the fourth toughest or strength of schedule. We had the fourth in the state, the fifth in the state. I wanted, my girls to play the best and to compete against the best. And I, at times, obviously it is mentally challenging, but then that's where, as a coach, I think we have to prepare them mentally because that's what they're going to go into at the next level. They're not hardly going to get any breaks at the next level. And a lot of our girls play at the next level that we talk about. And, it just gets tougher and tougher. I was also, I played in 1978 when it was still class 1A. I mean, just one class. And now we're into, 4 classes. And, my philosophy was, unless I couldn't find a game, then, and I had to, I didn't play. I didn't want to play a 3A game, a 3A school, because it was, in my opinion, it was a no-win situation for me. Okay. I had to win. If I didn't win, and it has nothing against the 3A school, there's some very talented, and teams that can compete with 4A as we well see by the scores. But it put me, I felt, in a no-win situation. And then now with the transfer rule, now you get beat by 3A, and then that adds in a whole other dynamic right now. But now 3A schools and want to play up to help prepare them for the sectionals.
Yeah.
And, but there's games, LCLN, North Central. I mean, Pike, we have trouble getting games. And sometimes you have to do what you have to do. So, but yeah, it's just interesting.
2 years ago, Warsaw was approaching the postseason with questions of their strength of schedule. Both South Knox approached the tournament a couple of years ago with questions of their battle testing because of their strength of schedule. Both teams didn't advance as far as they did the following year. They went back and made a conscious decision to strengthen their schedule. Warsaw then goes on to represent the North Side in the 4A state championship. South Knox goes on to win the 2A state championship. In that sample size of 2, the science of battle testing is proven. The only argument, well, not the only, but one of the arguments for having an easier schedule is you can, perfection is often attained more so against those bad opponents. You can create really good habits sometimes of just knowing what success is and knowing how things work and things like that. There does have to be a delicate balance, but just look at Warsaw and South Knox. I mean, we know from Holly's been on the show and Lenny's been on the show, said that they literally said that, like, we needed to beef up our schedule because we needed to be ready for the state tournament. And look what those two coaches did with their programs last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even now, I mean, with 2 games to win a semi-state, to go on to state, 2 games in one day against, further on in the tournament. I mean, you have to be able to be prepared to go against 2 tough teams in one day at that level.
Yep.
Couple other 3A sectionals to breeze through. It's nice that the draw got it right because there's less for us to talk about on the front end, I suppose, in terms of previewing matchups. Jennings County and Greensburg are situated on the opposite side of the bracket. They also both got the draw or got the bye. So they're going to go into the championship game, assuming nothing goes wrong, better rested. So that should make for a really fun championship game down in Franklin County. The Charlestown bracket, Silver Creek, assuming they get by winless Scottsburg, is going to have Charlestown and then potentially Madison or Corden Central, the team that bounced them last year. And then down in Vincennes, Lincoln, Washington, Danny, whom we had on earlier today. You can check that episode out right here on the YouTube page. They open against Jasper, and then they go on to play Vincennes, Lincoln, with the winner getting either Princeton or Southridge. Princeton, of course, being the team to beat Washington. And then finally, Evansville Central opens against Heritage Hills, with the winner getting Boonville. Evansville Memorial drew the other bye in that group. Anything else, Danny, from 3A, 2A, 1A before we jump up to 4A?
No. Well, yeah, and you already talked about how Cathedral and Chittard are on opposite side. Yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah, that one, by the way, I don't think I touched on that. It's going to be phenomenal.
You didn't touch on that's okay. Sorry.
Yeah, let's pause on that. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. Cathedral versus Bishop Chittard in the sectional, opposite sides of the bracket, but honestly, that's a tough bracket because Cathedral has to go through Purdue Poly, Chittard has to go through Crispus Attucks. I mean, I think it's still more likely than not we see that, but man, it's not a guarantee, I would say.
I don't think it's a guarantee. I think both of them are going to have things rolling, so I think we'll see a great basketball game again. Those rivalry games. Now, this is going to be at Shortridge, right? So we've played them on neutral floor. We've played them in the home and away in the regular season matchups, and now Shortridge for the sectional. But again, I hate to use the take that we had when we talked about that game and in evaluating it, but Cathedral and Chittard are 2 schools that are separated by 3 miles. There's a ton of familiarity. Coach of one side knows the system of the coach of the other side. I think that's an interesting matchup. We talked about how more so with Cathedral than Chittard, the fact that they're in this 3A South kind of conglomerate of teams that could win it. And this is the sectional draw, just reminding us, like, hey, pump the brakes a little bit. Like, one of these teams still has to win the sectional, and I think it could be either of them. But in those rivalry games on a Saturday night on a neutral floor, anything can happen. I certainly like Cathedral, and certainly on the strength of their head-to-head win against the very team that we're talking about. But that's one that they knew. It's not like, oh, we have to play Chittard. I mean, they knew at some point in time that Cathedral was going to get Chittard and vice versa.
I'm really interested to see how Purdue Poly performs. I think that there was a lot for them to learn from that Chittard game where they played them competitively. That'll be an interesting matchup. Then Crispus Attucks, they have Cam Banks, who's one of the better players in the area.
Sure.
How does she stack up against the Chittard team that's really found its rhythm and found its groove here in the month of December through January by kind of returning to its roots playing defensively? We'll dive a little bit deeper into those individual matchups as they come up, but certainly one to keep an eye on. As we jump up to 4A, you have Homestead and Norwell on opposite sides of the bracket. As you see right here, that one is going to set up pretty well. Not a ton to worry about there, I suppose. Snyder Northrop open up in the first round of their bracket. Anything else, Danny, before we start moving into the area that you wanted to touch on, or DeeAnn?
No.
Yeah.
Sectional 8.
Naturally, just real quick on that. So we would always, we always breeze over the Homestead sectional. This is the first time that we've actually paused to talk about Homestead in the sectional. Again, not an original thought. It just reminded me. I certainly have known about the success clause and Norwell's interjection into that sectional with Homestead in it. But on the south side, this sectional does have certainly a different feel than it has had in recent memory, because of the fact that Homestead not only plays a formidable opponent, but they play a formidable opponent that has beat them this year. So that is everybody's like, hey, I like Homestead. Again, pump the brakes. I mean, they got to play Norwell, and that's something that they haven't had to do. They used to just be an automatic staple in the regional round, and now they have a nice test in front of them to get there.
This is just
Homestead with that loss, and then with losing to Warsaw as well, is going to make them, I think, wake up and make sure that they're not just guaranteed to walk through and have an easy ride, so to speak. So with their 2 losses, rather than going, undefeated season and heading into the tournament that way. So I think those losses could end up helping Homestead.
Yeah, talking to Rod Parker, it was after that Hamilton Southeastern game that Homestead kind of started to figure some things out, started to put some pieces together. That was there towards the end of December, I believe it was, right around Christmas time. For Homestead when they lost to IHSAA, I want to say. But either way, that was kind of the turning point in their season. And it's interesting with them, with Warsaw, with a lot of these teams, there are very definitive and clear-cut turning points of when they kind of got that kick in the butt and woke things up. For Homestead, it was that HSE game. For Warsaw, it was the Jennings County game. Norwell's situation is a little bit different, but they had that grind of a stretch, the stretch that Eric Thornton described as the most difficult that he's ever faced in his career, when they went from the Hall of Fame to Valpo to Snyder. It was just hit after hit after hit. Not immediate results from there, but that's one of those stretches that toughens those teams. We've seen it from Eric all the time at the 3A level these past couple of years in their runs to Gamebridge. So just kind of an interesting factoid there, I guess, bouncing off of DeeAnn's point about the losses and how they can impact a team season in a positive way. Looking now here in the Indianapolis area, Sectional 8, always one of the toughest. This year, a little bit different, I feel like, because it seems to be a clear-cut favorite in Hamilton Southeastern. But Westfield, I think, is the second best team in that group, and they drew HSE in the first round. Then on the other side, you have Carmel, which just took Pike into overtime. Nobles was always dangerous, and I feel like the bye helps them because it gives them a chance to just continue to get that a little bit healthier. And then Zionsville Fishers is probably anybody's guess. Because, they're just too, you can go either way with both of those teams. Danny, we'll start with you, and then DeeAnn, just your thoughts on how this bracket shapes up.
Earlier this morning on our episode, Mike Armstrong got on. We asked him the question that we ask a lot of coaches is the coaching preparation, expectations for the draw, things that you look for. And he said something that I had never thought of. He said, you want to make sure, not make sure, but you one of the things that you want to avoid is playing a team that gets to play on their home floor on Saturday night. This scenario could be set up for that. You have the early round matchup with Hamilton Southeastern and Westfield, who a lot of people think are the 2 best teams. And looming on the top side of that bracket, if they can get there, is Carmel, who would get to play the Saturday night sectional championship against either crosstown rival on their home floor. with just the recent reminder of taking Pike, not just to overtime, but leading them by 9, playing very, very well, starting to figure some rotation things out. Look, they had to get on the bus and go to Homestead the next morning. They were on the bus at 8 a.m. in the freezing cold. Like, I haven't screened that game. I saw the score. I don't know, but I draw a ton of conclusion, quite honestly, from the Pike game on Friday night. Because what I do know now, regardless of how Pike performs, because on a bad night and that depth, that's still a very, very good basketball team. Carmel's best can hang. You give them the advantage of home floor. You give them the advantage of their home locker room. You give them the advantage of home routine and all of those different things. That Saturday night could get very interesting, regardless if it's HSE or Westfield. That was what jumped out at me about Sectional 8.
Yeah, now I would agree with Danny. I mean, that's huge for Carmel, and especially, like he brought up, taking Pike to overtime. I mean, now you got the chance to believe. I mean, you were right there against the number 1 team in the state. So now you can believe now that you can pull it off. And then, Fishers, I think, just beat Brownsburg.
Yeah.
So, she's got them playing very well. So I think while HSC is, the favorite here, I mean, anything could happen in this one as well.
Fishers went out. They beat Brownsburg. The last Friday, they got upset or upended by Avon. So
oh, wow.
It's just been kind of a roller coaster season for a lot of teams in this sectional. An interesting year. DeeAnn, I'll pause on this because this is a thing that Donna Buckley and I talked about a lot. I remember my first year, that year they went to state, and in subsequent years, the bye. Yeah, I think it varies year to year, team to team, but by and large, as a rule of thumb, what's your stance on the bye? Did you want it? Did you not want it? How did you feel and view it?
I think it kind of all depended on each year. I was different. Each year I was different. The only thing that I didn't want to do was turn around. We always have our last game was Warren Central, and I just didn't want to play Warren and then turn around and have to play Warren again immediately. But I just think, I think it all depends on your schedule the last week of the season, heading into sectionals, and then, each year it's different. But I never really liked the bye if I could get certain matchups going against each other,
Sure.
if that makes sense. So, it really didn't make a difference to me, to be honest. It's just all about, your schedule the week before and prior, like, and I don't know, we'll probably get into this later, but like LN right now, they've got 2 big time games against this next week. I think LN's got Fishers and Pike heading into sectionals, and then having to take on Warren. And then if they can beat Warren, then they've got North Central. So, that's a tough road to go. So there, after those 2 games, mentally, you're with your kids, you're telling them, to stay positive, depending on how things go that week. And, getting them ready for sectional play. And that's tough.
I'll add to that, because if swing it back to 8, Southeastern also have Pike left on the schedule as well. If they were to drop that game, it's easy to say that means nothing, because it doesn't mean anything. You could only play Pike again if you advance all the way downtown. But there is still a lot of youth in that lineup. You do have to bring into question then, what does that do to the psyche of a team then that just lost to Center Grove and Pike consecutively? Does it start to creep into your mind that maybe those teams are a level ahead, and maybe they don't? Maybe they know that already, and maybe they're like, listen, if we got that kid in the backcourt, if we got number 11 in the backcourt and Holman, we're going to be good. And that should be what they're thinking. But it's just an interesting dynamic, because you're right. That game, while it seems irrelevant, it was the game 2 years ago that Pike actually, and I mistold the story a couple of episodes ago when I talked about how Pike played HSE and won the game. They didn't even win. Like, I think if my recollection serves me, I think it was like a 4th quarter comeback. They ended up like losing by 3. Keith walks out there and starts clapping, and then they go on to win, games in the postseason. So we know, give a positive effect in springboarding you through the tournament. I just wonder if it could have the adverse effects too if you don't jump in. And Hank, thanks for that. They lost by 5 and went on to win the sectional. Pike did after that close game against HSC, and HSC at that. I remember those two, the teams of HSC a couple of renditions ago. Like these are like top ranked, nationally ranked teams. Like they were very, very, very good. So let's look at the effect. Now, if HSC gets Pike, forget the Center Grove game. They're going to ride that wave right on into sectionals, into that Westfield game.
Yeah, that is. I really hope that game is played. That's going to be a really fun game. And freshly minted number 1 Pike, which I know Keith hates more than anything, being number 1 in the state. But that against the top 5 team, I think still in HSE, that's going to be phenomenal entertainment and a really good precursor lead in to the state tournament. DeeAnn, you mentioned sectional 10, and that segues nicely in here. Lawrence Central gets the bye. They play Arsenal Tech on that Friday. For better or worse, their game Monday against South Bend Washington's already been postponed. We'll see if they get that back on the schedule, but if not, they're going to go from whenever it was, I guess last Friday through Friday, so over 2 full weeks between games for them. On the other side, the defending state champions, Lawrence North, they're getting back is going to take some real doing. I mean, even getting out of the section is going to take some real doing. You have Warren Central in the opener. Then you get North Central, a team that played them extremely tough during the season. And then if you win that, you're going to face Lawrence Central in the championship game. I mean, that's I know Steven probably wouldn't have it any other way, but man, that's a tough draw.
Yeah, I know. That's a really tough draw for Lawrence North. I mean, they've had a tough schedule. They're young. I think you can tell by watching them how much that they have improved, even though, they're, the last couple times they've had some losses here heading into sectionals. And then, like I said, they have to play Fishers and Pike heading into sectionals, but this is a tough draw for them. And when they played and beat North Central earlier in the year, that was without Winston. And Winston has, made a difference in North Central. It takes any athlete, any player, some time to get adjusted and the team to get adjusted. But she will have 5 or 6 games in after the Warren Central game, which again, the more experience that she has in these games, the better North Central is going to be. And I think North Central could be a dark horse here. They've played some teams really tough for quarter and a half. And then if they can get consistent with it, they could pull off an upset for sure.
They're probably as dark of a horse as Lawrence North was last year in the sectional, quite honestly, against the same field. It's the same sort of thing. I think Lawrence Central won the draw. I think that's Captain Obvious over here. North Central and Lawrence North and Warren Central, all formidable outfits, can all beat each other up on the other side while Lawrence Central waits. The only qualifier that I will give to that statement is that here we are again with the Mike Armstrong key. I was obsessed with this, by the way, when I heard him. I love hearing smart coaches say smart things, but now Lawrence Central would have to play North Central if it is in fact to them that comes out of the bottom side on their home floor on Saturday night. And if again you're like, okay, I don't know if that's a major home court advantage. I don't know. Brooklyn Roberts hit 3 threes at home in the sectional matchup last year when Lawrence North upset Lawrence Central. Look, does Brooklyn Roberts hit those threes on the road? You can't say with 100% certainty that she does. So there's just a comfort to your rims, and there's a comfort to your lines, and there's a comfort to the sound, and there's a comfort to everything about it in the preparation. And that is going to be a game where they're going to have to, North Central, if they got Lawrence Central, would have to make shots, but they get to do it in their own gym. So that would probably be the only thing that Lawrence Central in the sectional round has to complain about, quite honestly, because they're looking really solid for a Saturday night matchup for the sectional.
Little less fortunate, I'd say, for Lawrence Central in the regional draw, which we'll touch on here at the end of the show. But yeah, I mean, Lawrence Central, you could not have asked for anything better in terms of how this thing shapes up.
Yeah, I agree.
Sectional 11, I think this is on paper one of the toughest in the area.
It always is.
Pike drew the bye. Like, if this thing were seeded, I think that aside from flipping Brownsburg and Plainfield, the bingo balls got it right. Right? Pike's the number 1 team in the state. Avon's the lowest rated in that sectional. 1-2 get the bye. That makes sense. Plainfield beat Brownsburg twice head-to-head. They should have gotten that other bye, and honestly, I think that would have been great for Plainfield just with the injury things as they try to get healthy. But still, at least we're not seeing Brownsburg and Plainfield on opening night. We're going to see Plainfield against the Ben Davis team. Ben Davis team, by the way, which beat Plainfield at the beginning of the season. Danny?
Yeah, look, Pike is being the number one team in the state now, gets to start their championship run. And if I'm Pike and I was coaching the number one team in the state, I'm with you, Hank. I would want the bracket to look out like this. You almost kind of asked the question earlier, open-ended. Do you want to play early? Do you want to get out there? I certainly understand the science behind what Pike and Keith are doing. We want to we want games in depth. We want a lot of possessions. We want to pressure you. But here's another thing too. Let's say it's Plainfield and Ben Davis, right? That's a great basketball game that could go either way. And then Brownsburg, obviously a rivalry game, regardless of who the opponent is on the bottom half there. And now if you get to Saturday night, you have to go through kind of this mini gauntlet, right? And so now I think Pike can look at their depth and we're going to say, well, we're going to jump on you early. We're going to try to get as many possessions in the first half of this game as possible. We're going to lean on our depth. We're going to attack you in this way, and then we're going to attack you in this. And it just gives them another, like they need another advantage, but it just gives them another advantage because by the time those teams on the bottom get to the sectional championship, they've been through it. I feel very good about Pike against Avon in that first round game, and I don't think that's speaking out of turn. I just think that's the reality of the situation. Avon certainly has a fighting chance, but if Pike does get away from them in that game, they're going to be chilling, waiting for them on Saturday, and that's going to be a huge advantage because they're going to be even fresher than anybody that comes out of the South, even notwithstanding the depth that they already have.
Yeah, I would just go to venture two. Again, you can't count out Stan Benge and Ben Davis. All these teams are familiar with each other. And, again, the preparation and preparing, knowing, as a coach, knowing the whole season, who your sectional opponents are, who your conference opponents are, and trying to set up a game plan even way back during the middle of your season all the way through as to what do I need my team to do to beat a Pike? What do I need my team to do to beat a HSC? What do I need my team to do to beat, Warsaw? So, as you prepare for those, we got to also just talk about, the coaching and the familiarity of that as they go against each other and what they're going to, and the schemes or what they're going to try to do differently when they've played them before.
We have a little time left here. So I'll put both of you on the spot and ask this. How would you approach playing Pike? I'm just curious. So we're on the topic of Pike and that depth and everything. How would you approach them in that matchup? DeeAnn, I'll start with you.
Well, I think it kind of all depends too on the type of team that I have. If I have a really good 3-point shooting team, then I might try to take away more of Pike's 3-point offense. If I'm one that, and make Pike score in the 2, try to limit possessions, and then obviously you have to break their press, their defensive, their transition. You can't allow them to get any transition baskets or second chances. You got to limit them, that when they do miss, you've got to block out and make sure you maintain that ball and then maintain that position or possession and limit your turnovers. If I'm not a good 3-point shooting team, then, I've got to, work more inside and, just kind of try to limit possessions.
I think with Pike, I think as the opposing coach, And this is, I guess, speaking personally, I tend to overcoach spots like this, and so I'm going to qualify this and say I don't know if it would work, but they play so many different lineups, and their scheme does change with the different lineups that they have. I think the first thing that you would need to do is you would need to understand really what Pike is trying to do. What's he trying to do when Savea Mitchell's in the basketball game? What's he trying to do when he plays Jeffers and Booker together? What's he trying to do when he plays Nicholson, Smith, and Devine? Try to uncover some patterns. And then I think you need to pick defenses based on that. I don't think that there is one singular blanket that you can drape over Pike, and that is by design, by Keith, and by design of the program and the luxury that he has with having so many great players. But how you guard, for example, middle ball screen, which is a very common action that Pike runs, when Savea Mitchell is coming off a Jeffers ball screen with Booker coming high-low, versus when Malia Evans is setting that screen in the middle, and it's going to be spin out. Those are two totally different things. So you can't say, hey, we're going to be in drop the entire basketball game. If you do it, Keith's going to carve you up. Pike's going to carve you up. And so I do think that you need to change it. You need to change some different things, and you need to give them things that they have answers for everything, but you have to raise those questions in Pike's huddle. So they have to answer them, because right now they're just dictating exactly what they want to do in these games. And quite frankly, they're in a little bit of a zone when they do it. One thing I would point out with Pike is in that game, again, and I don't want to get too granular with this. I don't know the relevance of it. I will say it on the show, but Keith subs a lot. DeeAnn, you've had a ton of their games. You've talked about it. I've heard you talk about it on the color commentary. You're talking about it. When they were down 9 points under 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter on their home floor, Keith subbed in Alana Devine, Sanaya Smith, Savea Mitchell, Kamari Booker, and Marley Jeffers, and he did not sub again the rest of the game, including overtime. Now, that could have been an individual game flow thing. Could have been also something that you prepare for certain lineups in different scenarios. And so I think that was kind of just an interesting thing that kind of happened over the weekend that I'm sure, that Keith is going to hear this and change what that is now. And then that's what makes them so great, is they just have the ability to just say, okay, you're going to try this. Well, we're going to do this and we're going to beat you. So, but guarding Pike, to go back to the original question, Hank, it's multiple things, and I think a coach in pre-game like preparation and implementation has just got to be on point, and they got to get some things right.
I definitely agree. Switching things up on him, and then you've got to have a team though also that is able to understand the dynamic and stuff, the transitions that you're putting in, the different defenses. And they've got to be able to execute that. So sometimes, you just have to understand the team that you have going against Pike.
Absolutely. Let's move down a little bit further south, the Center Grove sectional. The big thing here, obviously, is Center Grove and Franklin Central on the opposite sides of the bracket, as they point out during the show tonight. The last time that Center Grove lost was to Franklin Central in the sectional opener last year. Franklin Central then turned around and lost to Center Grove in the season opener this year. Obviously, Franklin Central, a little bit of a different team since then. So is Center Grove. That'll be an interesting bracket. There's not a ton to break down here. Decatur Central is an interesting group, maybe against Franklin Central, if they can get by Mooresville. I know they have some young talent there. Center Grove, barring disaster, should be able to skate into the final. But yeah, I'm glad that's another one where I sat with held breath, waiting to see Franklin Central and Center Grove in that game 1 slot. But thankfully, we got game 3 and game 2, so we won't have to see them play until Saturday. That is going to be a great showdown there on Saturday night if we get it.
Yeah, I think what I would say here, I'm going to lump a couple of teams together in this, and talking about Center Grove. We'll certainly get into more of the Center Grove story if it's them, or if it's Franklin Central. That will even be a bigger story, I think, in my opinion. But I talked about having stealing the thought from Coach Armstrong of playing a team on the road, on their home floor in the Saturday semifinal, or in the sectional championship. I'm sorry, stumbled through that horribly. There are 5 of the 16 teams in 4A that get to play the sectional as definitive favorites, and you throw on top of the fact that they get to play on their home floor. Those teams in no particular order are McCutcheon, home floor, Valpo and Lily Barnes, home floor, Penn, home floor, Pendleton Heights, home floor, and Center Grove is also home floor. So now you give the statistical and computer and ranking favorites in the sectional now the advantage of playing at home. Center Grove versus Franklin Central is the matchup we would all like to see. I think anything can happen in that game. I think Duval will likely be the key in that game. I think we all say that. And the counter with Haley Wagner. We talk a lot about Gilliard. Is anybody playing better than her? We don't know. We talked about Lilia Tapak, but Haley Wagner is a kid on Center Grove, and we'll get more granular into this as the week goes on. But that matchup between Wagner and Duval is juicy.
It's going to be so good. I hope we get it. That's going to be great. Speaking of McCutcheon, you mentioned them as one of the host teams. They open against Lafayette Jeff. That series was all over the place this year. Lafayette Jeff won the first meeting. McCutcheon blew them out in the second one. That'll be an interesting one to dive into, Danny. I'm interested here if you get a chance to film study those teams to see Maya Layton has been playing phenomenally for Lafayette Jeff. She's been unreal. I think she set the county all-time scoring record, maybe the school all-time scoring record. I can't remember, but I saw that kid playing at Faith Christian, and she's fun to watch. A little further south, one other sectional that I at least wanted to, or a couple other sectionals I at least wanted to mention. You have Floyd Central opening against Jeffersonville. Jeffersonville has a lot of talent on that team. I know the record isn't as glamorous that it's going to grab people's attention, but they're a good team, just in terms of talent. Floyd Central is one of those that's kind of gone under the radar. Danny, I remember we talked to them at the beginning of the year and kind of had that conversation about being overlooked, and they kind of embraced that underdog moniker, it seems like. But the way that they defend, they're a really darn good team there in Floyd Central. And then the Catskill sectional, Castle gets Evansville North, Evansville Wrights. I just talked about this one so I could say Wrights properly. Evansville Wrights plays Gibson Southern, and then Evansville Harrison awaits the winner of Castle Evansville North over there.
Wrights is good. Okay.
Yeah.
Wrights is good. They haven't gotten the sound that they have deserved. Whether there were bigger stories or other stories that we wanted when we had Soakland on, he has certainly talked about them. They're interesting. They have not that it comes to this, okay, but they have like multiple collegiate basketball players. Like they have multiple Division I basketball players. And the kid, I think, and I haven't checked Max Preps in a while, but I think the kid that's leading him in scoring is Ryan Wagner, who's a 28. I have no idea where the third parties kind of have Ryan Wagner ranked. But I guess my knowledge of the state, I think Ryan Wagner is one of the 20 best 28s in the state. I think she's really, really good. You have Kylia Mitchell, who adds a lot of strength in the backcourt to him. And then you throw on top of it Bailey Hape, who had a tremendous summer, can scored at 3 levels, kind of sneaky athletic, unlimited range. They're pretty tough. And so while they are in a very difficult section, I'll never count out Tyler Choate and Evansville South, Gibson Southern and their tradition, and Castle, like you had talked about. Wrights, I think, if I'm not mistaken, for the first time since we've been doing this show together, Hank, they're the ones that should come out of the sectional, right? Like, yeah, I don't ever remember being like Wrights is the team that's going to come out. Am I wrong?
No, I feel like they were in the hunt last year because that's how we found out that I couldn't say Wrights. So I called them Ritz.
Ritz.
A bunch of other crazy things. Yeah, that was a really special moment for me. But yeah, you're right. I mean, and they are. And Castle, man, don't sleep on Castle.
Castle's nice. Yeah,
that's a good team. Have you had a chance to see them yet, DeeAnn?
I have not.
I haven't either, but I've been checking their scores, and they're one of those teams that they just kind of pop up like, oh, they beat this team. I should put a little star next to them and just keep track of them. And they've had a few of those games this year where it's like, oh, they've done that. So that's a sneaky good sectional, I think, over there.
Yeah, they just are. John Harrell says that they must have played Evansville Wrights at January 8th and beat them by 10. So that will be a good matchup.
Yeah, it will be.
Jaden Scott, Izzy Grants, and Jordan Polheis. Like if they were to play Wrights, okay, it's like, I mean, the 3 players that I mentioned for Wrights and the 3 players, that's 6 college basketball players on the floor. Like they and the thing about Castle is, let me look, Scott Sr., Grant Sr., Polheis Jr. Very old kind of group. Now Bailey Hape is a senior, but Wagner and Mitchell are 28s, right? So does that experience of playing in a sectional when the elbow tightens up a little bit on that free throw line, it just maybe they've experienced it a little bit more. Castle's they're no stranger to playing in big games, and with the age and experience of that group, it is not a foregone conclusion that Wrights comes out, although they are the chalk pick. It's not by much. Like Castle's really nice.
And Castle's hosting. Castle is hosting.
Oh my God. Please say
it's back to Mike
Hank.
Armstrong every time. We have the man on for sweeps week, and he's just the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. That was one of the best things. It completely changed the way that I watched the show.
I didn't even think about that either. That was a great point brought up by Mike.
It really was.
Yeah.
But you know what? And hang on a second here. Because
Sure.
if you remember, when he had that Franklin group, this dates all the way back to the Clem years when they were really, really good. The reason why he said that, he goes on to, first of all, just go back and watch the episode. But if you don't have time or don't want to, he goes on to say that's exactly what they had to do when they were Franklin, is they had to go to Whiteland. Hank, you remember the text threads that were flying when Whiteland was up by 4 with like 45 seconds left, and everyone was like, what is happening? Whiteland of all people? And it was at Whiteland. And I remember streaming that game being like, that they just look completely out of sorts, and Whiteland does not. And so when he said it, it clicked, it triggered, and now I'm applying it to our show.
That 2024 team, that was 2 years ago. Wow. I forgot about that. Yeah. And I think it came down maybe with buzzer beater.
Yes.
Or something like that. Yeah, and it was crazy. It was one of Kelly Kirchhoff's teams, like just a really good scrappy group that I'd seen a few times during the year. They had a kid, I can't remember her name, but every time that I covered them like 2 or 3 times, she hit like a half court buzzer beater. It was the craziest damn thing. And then sure enough, that team, gave a Franklin team that would go on to reach semi-state and give Center Grove a run for its money.
Yes, that's right.
In the semi-state, because that was the year that Lawrence Central won it all. That was a crazy year, man. Feels like ages ago. And Shelbyville, too, played Franklin tough that year. I think that might have been Kylie Edwards' senior year, maybe. The kid who's playing softball.
Oh, that's right.
Down at Mississippi State. I could be off a year on that. But, yeah, man, that's crazy. That is wild stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the regional pairings before we get out of here. I'll just breeze through these. You're going to have the battle for Fort Wayne there at the bottom. That stands out. McCutcheon and the Sectional 8 winner. That'll be McCutcheon or Lafayette Jeff and the Sectional 8 winner will be interesting. Penn, assuming they get out of their sectional, got a pretty favorable draw there. And then you have Valpo more than likely taking on Warsaw or Northridge in their regional battle. That'll be a lot of fun. And that, if it is Warsaw, I feel like we've seen Lily Barnes in this situation before. Remember, she almost took out the South Bend Washington team their first year in 4A, and it was a kid named Lily Barnes who almost did the deed for them in the regional before Lake Central ended up getting. Actually, I think it was that same 2024 season maybe that wound up getting South Bend Washington. So marbled mouth way of saying that's going to be a really fun sectional or regional game if it is Warsaw versus Valparaiso. For a South, it did not go the way that I was expecting. I was expecting it to be Pendleton Heights versus the Plainfield winner instead, or Center Grove winner versus the Plainfield winner. Instead, we get Pendleton Heights more than likely out of their sectional versus either Franklin Central or Center Grove. The North Central sectional with LCLN. North Central, they're going to be matched up with either Plainfield Pike or Brownsburg. That one will be really fun too, Danny.
Yeah, for sure.
I just needed a break from talking.
You're good. You're good. I'll vamp for a second just to give you time.
No, you're fine. We're almost there.
Go? Let's go. We're good. Go.
We're almost there. You got nothing. I'm running out of gas. DeeAnn's ready to throw in the towel. It's a late night.
I love it.
How about this? Regional 14, we're probably going to see Roncalli versus either Cathedral or Chittard.
Yep.
That's a real bummer. I'll be honest. But, hey, it happens. That's going to be a fun game. In Class 2A, another bummer. You have Rensselaer Central more than likely taking on LaPel. A real bummer because I would have liked to see that later in the tournament. But so it goes. And that's all I got. What do you guys got? It's 10:50. This is Danny and I went for an hour and 15 minutes earlier. I'm out of words.
Yeah. I said in this morning's episode that I thought the regional draw was actually the more relevant and telling thing in regards to predicting who gets downtown.
Significantly more consequential.
Yes, definitely. And then to remind everybody, and you can go to Hank's Twitter when he admitted that he forgot that they redraw at semi-state. This is as far as we can predict it. Just real quick, I'll give you one thing to kind of watch on either side. 4A North, Hammond Morton is a team that figures to be chalk. I will sit here in the screen and tell you that I know absolutely zero about Hammond Norton. I haven't even been to their Max Preps page. I know nothing about them, but I will going into it, and their potential matchup, if that chalks out, will be Penn. So Penn or Hammond Morton will be in the semi-state. So that's one thing there.
Why do you hate Crown Point?
I don't hate Crown Point. And Crown Point probably just guaranteed that they go in there. Hammond Morton, I think, is 17. And are you talking about within that sectional, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just went through. I just went records. Again, I know nothing about them. I haven't seen it, screened it, know nothing schematically. Don't know how they match up. I think I cross-checked Hammond Morton maybe with one score, and I think I cross-checked it against the Hammond Central score because I do have some familiarity with Hammond Central. I saw them live in one of the showcases that was held at Pike. I've got a lot of familiarity with their stud left-hander, India Hutchinson. And so I just kind of based it on that. So, but I am just kind of anxious to kind of figure in the other side of 4A South, East Central, Wrights or Castle or whatever. But it will be interesting to see how Bloomington South is. Without Julia Lashley, they certainly have enough talent with DeVries. I talked about in the episode where we covered Bloomington South that I really like Annie Smith. There's more players on the bench that they're bringing in. They're obviously going to not task one person with replenishing the production of Julia Lashley, but a multitude of players, and I think that's the correct strategy to do it. Another interesting thing on 3A South is we thought that there was a chance that we could get 2 Indianapolis schools in this mix of 3A South, but then you kind of relayed the bad news to us that Cathedral of Chittard would play Roncalli in the regional round. But for Buff Guerin, if they are able to beat Northview, if Northview chalks out, you still would get your 2 Indianapolis teams in the semi-state. It just wouldn't be the 2 that you thought. And then 3A North, I have one note. I'm shocked, kind of shocked that the broadcast got it, but South Bend St. Joe will play Culver in a game that will probably determine who is going to win that sectional and go on to play Highland in 3A North if Highland chalks out. South Bend St. Joe and Culver both have what many suggest are 5 of the best 29s in the state. In Lane Lyles, who is a huge D1 recruit, and it's only going to get bigger with what she's doing this summer and the eyeballs that are going to be on her. And Ari Rowell has just made a real name for herself, and everybody thinks that she's just going out and getting 40 against this opponent or that. But they're 17-5. Like, they're really good. They're also winning basketball games. They gave Marquette Catholic everything that they wanted earlier in the season in one of the games that I had screened there. But one of those dynamic freshmen, Lyles or Rowell, is going to be playing in the regional. That's it. That's all I got, Hank.
I'm glad you brought up the Culver Academies, kid. That's something we'll have to dive into a little bit more as we get into this upcoming week, because I was texting with their coach the other night about her, actually, and he was filling me in on her and everything that she's been up to. So that'll be a great little matchup over there. I think we're talking about the same school. We might not be. Culver Academy.
No, I'm sure. Yeah, no. I'm sure that you were getting texts about Lane Lyles. Yeah.
Okay. DeeAnn, anything else that you wanted to touch on that we didn't get to?
No, not that I can think of. Just an exciting time. It's going to be interesting to see, obviously all the great matchups and, all the adjustments that coaches make and, see who comes out. It's just an exciting time. And the parity, I think, is really unbelievable this year.
It is. It's going to be a fun and wide open tournament. Real quickly, a couple housekeeping things. Again, Danny and I will be back in some form or fashion with the sectional preview show. Lots of stories. My 11 takeaways from the sectional draw post on IndyStar tomorrow morning. There's a weekly wrap-up now that you can go and read. Go watch the episode from this morning. It was really good. Julia Lashley Violet Hall from Bloomington South, Katie Reed, Shay Hawk from Washington, and then Mike Armstrong with special guest Josh Sable as well. Go back, watch that show for sure. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube because, again, live shows all throughout the tournament. After every night of games, Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Danny and I will be live and back at it again for regionals. Then probably the following morning, DeeAnn, I'm sure, will be alongside for some of these episodes. So much content, so much talking, so much writing. So be sure to subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe to the IndyStar. It helps pay my bills. And keeps Danny around and keeps DeeAnn happy, I think. I don't know why, DeeAnn, that would affect your mood in any way, but I appreciate you being so invested in this stupid little show that we do. You guys.
I've enjoyed it. I've really appreciated you inviting me on.
Absolutely. We love having you. And thank you, everybody, to watch. The fact that we had 30 people on here at 10:30 at night is amazing to me. And I know that we're going to get a lot of viewers on the replay, too. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, DeeAnn, again, for stopping by with us. We'll talk to you guys again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.